All right, I'm gonna bring people in just a second here. Share screen.
Bring up the whole here. Yeah.
Hello, people. If you're joining us now, welcome. We'll be getting started in just a minute or two. Welcome, everybody, and I'm happy to introduce you to our guest today for our conversation on new way of organizing. A lot of organizations, co-op organizations specifically, are finding that working with a local nonprofit and other community-based organizations can strengthen their project and provide resources that might not otherwise be readily available. And we're very pleased today that we've got Arlene Wilburn from the Northland Food Market and Leila Klein from the just open Gem City Market, who's taking her first break in 18 weeks to be with us today. And Malik Yakini will be presenting remotely, actually pre-recorded because he wasn't able to be here with us today. So looking forward to an interesting conversation on how these community relationships have made it possible for these co-ops to get close to the finish line in most cases and over the line in Leila's, and how that might be an inspiration and something we all can learn from. So without further ado, I will, let's get us started. And we're going to have Leila start first, and she will share her screen and tell us about their project. Go ahead, Leila, thanks.
Well, I'm so thrilled to be here. And I think I know my colleague Amaha was part of a lot of panels yesterday. So if you've already seen him, you probably understand why my eyes are a little puffy. We opened on Wednesday at noon. In preparation for today, I grabbed some of the photos from Facebook and the local news that I could find. We don't have our sort of official professional photos of our opening yet. So I just threw in a few photos. So please forgive the weird formatting. I usually try to be a little more slick, but I just threw these in just this morning. So this is a picture of, is everybody seeing my screen okay? Yep, okay, thanks.
Yep, looking good.
Great. So this is a picture of about 40 minutes before our grand opening. So the people arriving on the plaza of the Gem City Market. Just the sort of excitement mounting. So, but going back 6 years, so Northwest Dayton is a part of Dayton that has been, has seen a history as a community, as a whole city. We've seen a history of hyper segregation, So the west and northwest parts of Dayton are predominantly African American. The east and south parts of Dayton are predominantly white. That has been created and reinforced by legal entities such as redlining and racially restrictive covenants that kept investment from coming to West Dayton, kept people living in their segregated sides of town. And then when the 2008 recession hit, there was a higher percentage of predatory subprime loans that were given to African Americans in Dayton, causing a much deeper impact of the foreclosure crisis in West Dayton. So therefore, we lost a lot of home ownership, and we saw a lot more vacant homes, which then was part of sparking a sort of a flight of grocery from Dayton. So since 2009, there has not been a full service grocery store on the west side of Dayton serving tens of thousands of people. About 60 to 70,000 people are not served by a full service grocery store. The one grocery store, which is just outside of the city of Dayton, up until Wednesday, the one grocery store was a Kroger, where you would see, lines down the aisle because it's like a single Kroger for 60,000 people, versus in the suburbs where it's like, 20 or 30,000 people per Kroger. And bigger and better Krogers in the south suburbs. We have our origins in the idea of opportunity mapping. So how does a community kind of map out where opportunity and risk are distributed, and look geographically at those dynamics. We came together as a community committee and decided that if no traditional grocery store was going to locate in West Dayton, that we would try to do it ourselves. And we, got some early support from FCI, and, like many of you who are in the early stages, we just didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. And so we decided to try to open a grocery store. And the first challenge, as you all know, was to select a site. The site that we chose was one that was based on a market study, but that was a site with some risks because it is, located in a neighborhood that has seen pretty serious divestment. The neighborhood that we're in is about 80% African American. It's the median household income is about $28,000 for the household. About a third of families are using EBT food stamps, and about 5,300 children are living in the neighborhood. So this is a picture of our groundbreaking last October. And then we also early on decided that we would found a nonprofit. So Co-op Dayton is a nonprofit 501c3 that was founded by the same people who founded Gem City Market. It is a separate entity, different boards. Now Co-op Dayton does other things and not just Gem City Market, but this is one thing that I think is unusual about us, is that we founded the nonprofit first, did a lot of site selection and business planning through the nonprofit, through grants, and then incorporated the cooperative and started selling memberships and developing our board. And that partnership has, I think, really served us well, though, it's challenging to run two different organizations. And I'm happy to say more about that in the questions. We were really focused on community input, even from the very beginning. We did a ton of surveys. We had 1,200 people take our first survey, both online and then, waiting at bus stops and stuff like that. We even had community committees working on our architecture. We did canvassing. We went door to door, did a lot of door knocking in the neighborhoods. And then we voted on a lot of key decisions, even when the board could have made the decision, but decided to put it to the community to really get people used to this idea that this is ours. These are both pictures from our grand opening. Actually, I think both of these are from yesterday. So this is on our second day of operating. These are some of our shoppers yesterday. We also ran a traditional philanthropic capital campaign through our nonprofit, our 501c3, and we were able to partner with a key hunger advocate from our community who was sort of like, I don't know if you've heard the term third-party validator, but somebody who is well-respected in the kind of food and hunger space, who said okay, I'm going to put my weight behind these guys. So that was something that really gave us a lot of momentum. And that was Tony Hall, who was our longest serving congressman from this area, who also went on to become the US ambassador to the UN on food and agriculture issues. So he's got this food background. He's on the board of Feeding America nationally, stuff like that. We also just really worked to build strong partnerships. So with the faith community, we had a faith advisory committee. We built partnerships with local federally qualified health centers, the hospitals, neighborhood groups, other allied organizations. So we say collaboration is kind of our superpower at Gem City Market, and that's really true. We like the partnerships that we developed. Even some of those partnerships were financial, some of those partnerships were just thought partnerships. Every partnership that we had moved the project forward. And then, as I mentioned, we did all of the pre-development steps actually using grant money. So we didn't have to touch membership money until it was time to build the building. So our like business planning, the first phase of our architecture. So not once we were under construction, but the sort of like early design work, our organizing budget, site selection, pro forma, all of that was paid for by the nonprofit as part of this pre-development project. So we had the Gem City Market, which is a cooperative, and then we had the Gem City Market project of Co-op Dayton, which was where we did a lot of the pre-development. So that's, again, I can answer questions. I'm also like a little hyper right now. It's been a week. So if I'm probably going really fast, is what I'm saying. Okay, so the market itself. So this is, the photo is of the moment that we opened our doors. This is the crowd waiting to go in. So it's a 15,000 square foot building, which includes community spaces, which I'll get into. So it's only about 8,000 of retail. It's owned by its employees. It's actually majority employee owned. Again, I think makes us somewhat unusual in the food co-op world. And it's owned 30% by the community. We currently have over 4,300 members when we opened our doors. 50%, over 50%, about 54% live in our immediate trade area, and 10% of our membership identifies as very low income. I will say we thought that 10 to 30% of our shoppers would be using EBT food stamps. Yesterday, I worked the register for 4 hours because sometimes that's just what you do. And I would say it was half. I think we had half EBT users. And that may be because it's early days or because of the day of the week or something like that. But I think even it says 10% low income, but I think that means that we're not necessarily representative in our members. So we need to work on that. Note to self. This is a photo of some people doing some dancing outside of the market on our opening day. So access to capital can be a real challenge for a project that is in a low wealth community. So our membership levels are lower than maybe what you might see in a more traditional kind of natural and organic food co-op. So our membership is $100, but it's $10 for those folks who identify as low income. And then we also, for a long time, worked with partners to do 50-50 matches for people who live in the immediate trade area to build those numbers. So we had partners who were willing to make up the $50. That actually, the hospitals were the main partners who did the 50-50 matches because they see a connection between health and food access. We also have supporting members, which are non-voting, non-profit participation members that pay $90 or more. It can be an entity or a person. That was just basically a donation mechanism. We raised about $200,000 that way. We also had what's called program-related investments, which are loans directly to the co-op from foundations. So not to the nonprofit, but actually directly to the co-op. They are mission-based loans that are low interest, paid off over a long period of time, structured to be favorable because they are mission-based. In order for a foundation to make these loans legally and have it count towards their required giving, they have to make them very favorable terms. So I'm putting these things out there and people can ask questions because I know I'm going kind of fast. We also worked with community development financial institutions, CDFIs, which is an alternative to banks, usually have more favorable lending. And in our case, we got money that was designated for the Healthy Food Financing Initiative, which I know some other co-ops have gotten as well. Then we got like traditional grants and donations. We raised about $3 million in traditional philanthropy and about another $1.5 million in government philanthropy. And then we also used new market tax credits, which I don't know if I recommend. And if you are thinking about using new market tax credits, please talk to me. This is a photo that was on the front page of our local newspaper. yesterday morning of somebody shopping at our store during the grand opening. So we're more than just a market, we like to say. And I think part of the reason that there has been an outpouring of support is, and in particular sort of community capital, is because we're more than just a market. So we have a goal of really giving back to the local community by having up to 20% local products, including produce, meat, pantry staples, coffee, beer, etc. We designate 3 levels of local in the store. So it's, the signage isn't, you can't see it in this picture, but we actually have local, West Dayton local, Dayton local, and Ohio local. So we try to like let our consumers vote with their dollars where they want to spend their money. We also have a teaching kitchen, a kitchen classroom, which I unfortunately don't have a picture of yet, but I can get one. A community room where we're having after school snack programs. Last night we had a yoga class there. We're having a free book giveaway for children. We're having smoking cessation classes, lots of like classes and activities. Oh, we're having 2 COVID vaccination clinics in our community room next week. And then we've partnered with a grassroots nonprofit who's actually managing all of that health and wellness. So the staff of the grocery store does not have to deal with, coordinating with the, public health in the county to get the vaccination clinic done. That's a way that we can like use that nonprofit partnership to punch above our weight, given that we have a fairly small staff. We also have a really amazing health and wellness committee that's made up of community health practitioners, mostly Black women who are nurses and massage therapists and doulas and midwives and yoga instructors and an amazing group of women who are our health and wellness committee and kind of dedicated to making the health and wellness a success. Here's just a couple of pictures. This was our original rendering. So you can see it doesn't look exactly, but this is, so we did a lot of giving tours. We took probably over 300 to 400 community members on tours during the late part of construction, just to really emphasize that point of like, this is your market. Like, it's not just us. This is our board member, Chevelta Harding, giving a tour to 3 community members. And we let people sign up online to take these tours. During COVID, because we couldn't have big community meetings, these kind of 3 or 4 person masked tours were the way that we kind of kept our community feeling in the loop. This is just a shot of the store before we had product on the shelf, back when it was clean. It's still clean. It's still really clean. Just, looks different now. This is you all know Amaha Selassie, probably our board president. And these are some other community members. And that's it for me.
Thanks, Leila. There's a few interesting comments coming in. I think nothing that I think we can't hold off for Q&A a little later, though. If you would drop your screen share, we'll go back to.
I am working on it.
Oh,
Sorry.
I got it. Never mind.
Okay, thank you.
I can do it from my end. So thanks a lot. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. One of the things I don't think you really brought up in much detail, and then just want to get this one out of the way, is the relationship with the union and the union co-op Cincinnati program. How much did that impact your organizing success?
Thank you. Yeah. So the Cincinnati Union Co-op Initiative, which is now called Co-op Cincy, is our sister organization in Cincinnati, and they and we, based on them, organize around the idea of union cooperatives. So we're based on this model out of Spain called Mondragon, which is a network of over 100 interdependent cooperatives, many of them in manufacturing. But they also have a grocery chain, Eroski, that has over 1,000 stores. And they have found that when you have worker ownership, even when you have worker ownership, there's still a strong need for employee voice. And that sometimes the employees who are wearing their management hats as employee owners don't always kind of look out for the interests of just your like average rank and file, cashier or stocker. And so they emphasize the need for union cooperatives, which are co-ops that are both unionized and also worker owned. And so we follow that model as well. So what we've really done is we've built union neutrality into our bylaws so that if the employees choose to unionize, that we won't fight unionization. We'll take a collaborative rather than an adversarial um, perspective and approach to labor relations, and that we actually encourage the staff to consider collective bargaining as a way to set terms and conditions of employment. Hasn't really come up yet because we just opened 2 days ago, and we only just now have our new staff. But we did have a lot of support from the labor movement, the unions in Dayton, Ohio. Dayton's a big union town, as I know Flint is as well. And so we did get really strong support, especially early on, from the unions. So some of our initial seed funding came from unions, and then we also got a lot of support as we went on various things. And we also built our store with 100% union labor.
Interesting. All right, that's I think a relationship that not very many co-ops have ever looked at in advance of opening, and even maybe been afraid of. So I think that's a really interesting aspect of your project. All right, I'm going to switch us over to my screen for a moment. And okay, there's Gem City, and let's moving right along.
You guys see Dave Chappelle there in the middle?
Is that who that is?
Yep.
Wow. Now that's worth the whole show right there. Is he a local resident and presumably owner?
I don't think he's an owner. That's a good question. No, he lives in Yellow Springs, which is a small town outside of Dayton. He came to the store last week just to show support and meet the staff. That's actually, he's surrounded by staff. His wife is next to him to the right.
Okay.
Yeah, just, celebrity visitor.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. All right, here's the North Flint market, and Arlene Wilburn, I'd love to introduce you now as the early general manager. Early only that the store isn't open for a while yet, and she said having the opportunity to get involved during the latter stages of decision making and planning, which I think is a wonderful opportunity for any future store general manager to have. So I'll let you take over, Arlene, and just give me the high sign when you want me to switch slides.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Once again, my name is Arlene Wilburn, and I am the general manager for the Northland Food Market. So for me, I've been on board since 2019. I've been in supermarket business for 26 years. And I used to work for Meijer's, which is a very commercialized supermarket chain. And for those who don't know about Meijer's, it's just like a Walmart. So for me, I started off as a bagger. I ran the customer service area. I did the supermarket area. I did the general merchandise. I done third shift. So then I moved up to the store director. And then I went into HR, which is, like I said, different skill sets throughout my years. But my passion is the Northland Food Market because this is where I grew up. And everyone knows what happened to Flint back in 2014 was a lead crisis that led to many of our residents contaminated water that got into their system. And then we had two major stores leave the area, which was Meijer's and also Kroger's. So for me, I realized that my home area did not have a local grocery store. And I realized that working for Meijer's, I took all of my time and I let them know that it's time for me to go back home to help them open up this store. So that's why I'm here. Next slide, please. And this is just an overview of our store layout.
Sorry, I got ahead of myself, or ahead of you anyway.
It's okay, I'll keep talking. It's 21,900 square foot building where we're going to have a full grocery store with the produce, dairy, meat department, frozen foods, dry goods, deli area, bakery, as well as a community room. And just like Leah said about the Gym City, the community room is going to serve so many different purposes because it's not only going to be for our local partnerships to come in and share feedback with our community, as well as seminars, training pieces. It also will serve as a place for folks who may want to come and rent it out for a local party or a private party of some sort. Next slide, please. So this is just an overview of why we're putting the Northland Food Market on the north side of Flint. City of Flint is a population of 95,000. 39.9% is below the poverty level on the north side of Flint. Per capita income is 14,000. Medium income is about 27,000. Next slide, please. So we wanted to combat, when it comes to racial injustice, access to healthy foods, and environmental justice issues. Next slide, please. Because like I said before, with the water crisis that targeted our area, it left our residents feeling uncomfortable. A lot of them didn't believe. So we're bringing in the Northland Food Market to a community that's already have been hit by the water crisis. How do you get people to buy into this? How do you get people to trust this? And that is why we had to really think outside the box, because as an African American person, it's easy for me to say, hey, this is going to work, but I need to see how is it going to work. I need to know why does it need to work. And then of course you're asking for my money. Well, now we really need to see all the details of the Northland Food Market. Next slide, please. And of course you can see that coming to up and coming seminars really gave us that forefront and gave us that drive on how we could take the information from these conferences back to our city and get it started. And as you can see, we are here, we are smiling, but we are ready to get back to work.
I
Next
think
slide.
you set a record that year for the most people from one co-op.
We loved it. On this slide here, we had Lieutenant Governor come to our city, and he wanted to know more about the Northland Food Market. And so for him, he understands the importance of having local grocery stores in our community to help combat with the lead crisis that came from the water crisis, and also giving people a neighborhood grocery store where they live at. Because right now in the north side of Flint, we do have mom and pop stores, but they're not giving the access to healthy food that every person, every child should have. And that for me was something that hit close to home, because back in 2016, my mother, who had terminal ill cancer, during her last stages, there were certain foods that she could not consume because it was hard for her to swallow. So for my family, trying to locate a grocery store at certain parts of the day was unacceptable. We had to drive all the way 20 miles outside the area just so I can get her some of the foods so she can consume. For me, that is just unheard of, and it should not be happening in any part of our country, especially in 2016 and even currently right now. Next slide, please. So what the Northland Food Market is not just trying to build a co-op grocery store. We want to be that foundation in our community that we can share, that we can partner with. And on this slide here, right now, currently, we are partnered with the U of M Flint, which is University of Michigan Flint. And we are bringing professors from the college to our community that we can show young people between the ages of 15 to 24 on how they can become young entrepreneurs. This came about from a grant, and we're partnership with Illumini Community Change, where we have received $40,000. And in that 40,000, we partner with U of M Flint. And what we're doing is providing classes for our young people. Actually, we have one that just ended on April 24th, where they spend 2.5 hours, and we are showing them, giving them the classes that they need to become young entrepreneurs. And this is a young lady that signed up at one of our courses. Next slide, please. And this shows before COVID, we had classroom settings, and this is our young participants, and they were learning what it means for legal matters, marketing matters, resources that they need to become young entrepreneurs. Next slide, please. And then what we did with those participants, we had a huge, large event located outside, of course. And we took all of those vendors and they were able to market and sell their products, all because of Northland Food Market. So what we're trying to do is create that platform, create that partnership. So once the store is opening next year, we're going to have our vendors come into our community event center, and they will be able to sell and market their products every Saturday between the hours of 8 to 12. So that way we're creating that partnership, but as well as in our community, we're showing small business owners how you can get started in getting your business off the ground. Next slide, please. And these are just some of the pictures that showcase all of our vendors. And we had over 24 vendors that came out that day. And this is no cost to them. We didn't charge them for table rent. We just want to be able to showcase their products. Next slide, please. And once again, for the Northland Food Market, it was also a way that we were able to collect new members to join the Northland Food Market. And this is a way that we have that close partnership and a long-lasting relationship that will come from years to come. Next slide, please. It was a wonderful event. I couldn't be more happy because once again, I'm taking them from the classroom to as well as to the outside and showing vendors how you can get your business off the ground. Next slide. And one thing that I also want to say is, as a general manager for the Northland Food Market, we are going to build a mentoring partnership for our young people so I can show them what it means to become a general manager. So I want to show them execution. I want to show them operations. I want to show them how do you show customer service in one sec of the building, as well as take care of issues on the other side of the building, and being able to give them that comfort, that mentorship, as well as show them that it's not on your cell phone is how you're going to run a business. It comes from being able to talk to one another. Next slide, please. And of course, I had to do some shopping myself. And what I want to show on this slide is how much is so important to visualize and market your business. And as you can see, this young lady, she has a beautiful purple table with the flowers to accent, with her long-standing stand there. That is what sells your product. And that is how you get your business off the ground. And also for the Northland Food Market, we have partnered with some fantastic guys that help bridge a Zoom activity about financial empowerment, because we're trying to show our community about owning your own business, owning stock and real estate. So the Northland Food Market is just not a place to shop for groceries. We are putting our stamp on financial literacy, on young entrepreneurship, on our block club meetings, on our city council. We're just putting the seeds all over Flint so that people understand and realize when they see that stamp of Northland Food Market, it means feeding the entire community in so many different ways. And just like Leah had mentioned from the Gym City, we also too want to make sure that we talk about stress. And yoga is one way that can combat with stress. And we have partnership with the Hurley Medical Center and other organizations in Flint to help our residents, especially during COVID, how can you deal with stress? Next slide.
Okay, that was the end of your slides, I guess. So you talked about a lot of programs that you've put together to empower other people in your community. And how has that helped build your co-op's ownership, capital, or just helped move it forward? Is it a two-way street? I'm assuming it is.
It definitely is, because it's not just collecting. We want to create a partnership. So for instance, once the store is open and running, the Hurley Medical Center has already put grant money aside to where they can come over and they can be able to share training, seminars, and so forth. But one thing about the event center, it has to make money, just like the store has to make money. So this piece is where we are finding out yoga classes. We want to do date nights. We want to be able to have bingo. Some of our seniors, they love bingo.
Yeah.
So we want to be able to create that type of activities over in the activity center so that we can just not shop there. We also going to be partnering. And I think that is how you create partnerships.
It's more than a partnership. It's just really immersing yourself in your community. I mean, we always talk about fitting your community, but you're just taking that to a new level, I think. I'm really impressed. One last question. I know you've also, we're talking partly about capital today, but I know you've had partnerships and relationships with a lot of organizations to raise the capital you need to open your store. Do you want to comment on that at all?
Well, right now is, once again, is the North Flint Reinvestment Corporation is like, I call it the umbrella. And under that umbrella, we already have a school, we already have a daycare center, and then we're going to have the Northland Food Market Co-op grocery store. So that all is funded underneath that umbrella, as well as we want to do a credit union. So we're just trying to establish this all on the north side. But once again, we need to have it on the east side of Flint, the south side of Flint. So it's just a way for us to just get the grants that we need. And so far, this project is $7.5 million project.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the equity of our members, we have not touched one dime of that money because that's all already rainy fund on once the store opens, in case we may have days where we don't make the sales.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm sure there'll be questions to follow on how you're arranging all of that, because it's pretty inspiring. I'm going to take us back now to Malik, and this is pre-recorded. I hope, and the sound is not as excellent as I would have hoped, but I think it's understandable all the way through. And for those of you who are looking at closed captioning, I apologize if we don't have good quality on that as well. But here we go. Just take a second, I think, to get the video started. Okay. Good morning. This is Stuart Reed from Food Co-op Initiative, and our next presenter was not able to join us in person today, but we did not want to miss the opportunity to share the story of what's happening at Detroit People's Food Co-op. And so I'd like to welcome Malik Yakini, and we're talking today about how they have used very strong partnerships in their community to get to where they want to be with their. Welcome, Yakini. Malik, sorry. We're off to a good start, aren't we? Okay. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got started? Was the Detroit Black People's Food Alliance there first, or was always the goal to start a food co-op? Okay, yes, thank you. Two of the acronyms. Yeah.
Yeah, early on in the formation of our organization, we knew that co-ops and so from our founding in 2006, one of our goals was to support existing co-ops and to start a new co-op. And frankly, it's our view, well, first of all, we're an anti-capitalist organization. We make absolutely no bones about that. We think capitalism is a terrible economic system, both for human beings and for the planet. And then that coupled with the system of white supremacy tends to concentrate wealth in the hands of people who are identified as white. It tends to dispossess Black communities and brown communities of wealth. In fact, it extracts the wealth from those communities in basically all retail areas, particularly in the areas of food. So we were very concerned about how we stop that extraction of wealth from our communities, how we build a circular economy that our communities so that we're living up these areas. And not just are making money happen to be business owners. So we think the cooperative model really is the only way for communities who have been kept out of the mainstream economy to galvanize their collective in the face of a capitalist system which is element of keeping us out of the mainstream economy. So that was our thinking from the very beginning, that thinking continues to guide what people do. And so we knew from the beginning that co-ops were important. So we started supporting an existing buying club that's operating in Detroit since 1995. And that's a monthly buying club. So we supported them, and we still support them, but we also knew it was important to have a brick and mortar store. And so we started actually buying club in 2009, which we operated until 2017, which was designed to be a precursor to the brick and mortar building that was soon be in construction. So it's been really part of our thinking for the last 15 years of our organization.
All right. And how is that, what's the relationship between the two organizations, between the food co-op and the nonprofit?
So the Detroit Black Community initiated the Detroit People's Food Co-op. And sometimes Akua Woolbright, who's the president of calls DBCFSN the parent organization. I'm not sure I see it in that way, but certainly we initiated it and have given support to the Detroit Food Co-op since it was formed in 2014. In the state of Michigan, where we're operating, Michigan co-op law says that a nonprofit, which is creating a co-op, can appoint up to a third of the board members to that co-op. And so Detroit Black Community appoints 3 members to the 9-person board of the Detroit People's Food Co-op. And then that's for the first board term. For the second board term, we appoint 2, and for the third board term, we appoint 1. And then eventually we intact and doesn't become, the co-op doesn't become co-op.
Yes.
So we want to be there, you know, we have some influence, and we want to be there just to kind of help shape things in the formative stages. But once the co-op is fully operational and is embedded in the value system that guides it, then DECFSM basically steps back from the direct kind of leadership role that we play in the co-op. So we have been a catalyst and perhaps an incubator for the sort of school co-op. We continue to provide office space and office support for the co-op, even though the co-op now is much stronger, has its own, you know, board, its own bank account, has volunteers who are working to move forward as committees. And so we don't have to, the parent organization doesn't have to carry the heavy load that we were doing a few years back. The co-op basically saying.
Yeah, yeah. It reminds me a little bit of Mandela Marketplace and the Mandela Food Co-op in Oakland. Was that an inspiration at all?
Yeah, for sure. We visited several co-ops over the last 2 years as we developed the plans to start what became the Detroit People's Food Co-op. And Mandela Co-op in Oakland was certainly one because they're serving a similar demographic. West Oakland is the majority African American part of the city. It's predominantly low and moderate income, and it's a part of the city that doesn't have lots of options for healthy food.
Right.
So very interested in it. And so we visited the Mandela Co-op and the owners also talked to the head of the parent organization and kind of gave them their support. And yes, we're absolutely inspired by that. You know, this is the major difference between school co-op and Mandela Co-op. The Mandela Co-op is a member-owned co-op.
Right.
Co-op is a consumer co-op. None of us great distribution.
Another difference is scale. They're a much smaller co-op than you're planning. Could you tell us a little bit about the combined business plan that you have for the future food co-op?
So we're actually building and let me back up and say that our organization, in addition to our opposition to capitalism and our opposition to white supremacy, we are very much embedded in the idea that Black people should consider self-determination. That because we live in a society that is largely a racist society and systemically disempowers Black people, keeps us out of kind of the mainstream order of power. That what we need to do is we need to be trying to build power and autonomy as much as we can in any project that we develop. And so those ideas guide how we approach the plan. So we decided early on that we wanted to own the land that the co-op is built on. We want to own the building that the co-op will exist in, so that we're not just tenants in a building owned by somebody else. And so we have this kind of complementary and complicated relationship between three entities: the Detroit Black Community History Network, 5.6 nonprofit, are using 0.3 of the 9 board members currently. Then we have the Detroit People's Food Co-op itself, the member firm and conglomeration with 174 member owners currently, who are interested in running this grocery store, this cooperative store, for the city of Detroit that actually owns all that business. And then we have Develop Detroit, which is a part of the Detroit Black Community professional development nonprofit. They primarily do housing, something much recent. And after meeting with and trying to forge partnerships with two other developers, we finally found one whose values are much more aligned with our organization and our vision for what Detroit might become. And so we found a good partner in Develop Detroit. And so these three entities are somewhat tied to the and I'll explain a little bit in more detail the relationship between us three. So the land that we're doing this project on, and we have about 10 parcels that we are purchasing from the city. We currently have a purchase agreement that's been signed and deposited in paid. And we're just waiting for that to finish working its way through the city, its way through the city bureaucracy. We already have ownership of 2 parcels from an individual owner. And by the way, we got stuff up from those. Part of what's happening in Detroit is because land and houses are relatively cheap compared to the rest of the country. We have lots of speculators from across the country and around the world who can go online and purchase properties in the city. And so there was an absentee landlord really in New York who owned 2 parcels in the footprint of what would be the parking lot, what we could. And so we had to pay a tremendous amount of money for those 2 parcels. One was an empty parcel and one had an dilapidated house on it. And then we had to pay $14,000 for that house per month. So we have managed to take those 2 properties and purchase agreement the other 10 or so. We're expecting that to be finalized in the next 30 to 60 days. So Detroit Black Community District Network will own the land. The project is being built up to the extent that land can be owned. Let me just say that I personally push back against the concept of private land ownership. It's one of the pillars of the capitalist economic kind of philosophy. This idea that if you have enough money, I really think it's a ridiculous idea. But nonetheless, within the context of the current system, this is one of the main contributions that we hope as we move towards creating more just economy in this society. So, without going into a lot of detail, I'll just say that we looked for several parcels of land before winding up where we are now, which is looking at Detroit's Main Street. We were determined to be there. We want to be on side streets somewhere because we're also making a state, we're building a co-op, changing how we think about the economy, but we're also making a statement about who has agency in shaping what is going to happen to Detroit. And so we want to be right in the middle and make it highly visible to people coming in and out of Detroit and residents of Detroit each day. So one of the things that we had to do in order to get this property that we're purchasing from the city of Detroit, they didn't just want to see a commercial development on the main corridor. Their plan for what they call the river corridor includes mixed use development. And so they wanted to see housing as part of this development that we're doing. We therefore had to find a development partner to do the housing part of this. Now, although in a sense the housing and the co-op are all part of the same project, they're being considered separate. So the city requires that they be housing part of the project, but they're totally different funding sources and moving at different paces. You know, they're on different timelines, but still the city's considering them all to be part of the same project. And so that's one of the reasons we brought Detroit, so that they can spearhead a housing markets connected to the club project. But the other reason is because this is a $17 million project, which is probably insane most of the time. And when we started, it started about as a $6 million project, and then as our vision has clarified, we got real numbers. This thing that's flowing is now $17 million project. And so as we were trying to get all the financing in place, early on we realized that we had to have somebody with deeper pockets. That the way lending works within the capitalist system is you have to have, if you were to borrow $1 million, you have to have something worth $1 million to serve as collateral in case you default on the loan, so the bank can get the money. The bank is not going to do this.
Yeah, right.
And so clearly our organization doesn't have $2 million to the bank that we could put in escrow or something to use as collateral for a loan like that. And so we had to find somebody with deeper pockets. And so Develop Detroit has those deeper pockets. And so we serve as a guarantor also for the debt financing on the project. And so those are the two roles that Develop Detroit plays. So Develop Detroit and Detroit Black.
Hi, Stuart. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I stopped your screen share. Erica Hardison actually just called me and said she is with Malik. So none of us can hear the video, but Malik
Okay.
I made her a panelist. So Erica, are you able to turn on your camera or?
Good morning. This is Stuart Reed.
Erica? For those of you listening, we're trying to resolve some technical issues here, and I
Sure.
certainly apologize for
We
the
can't-
poor sound
We
quality.
can't hear you. Okay. All right. Bye. Okay. Erica is working on it, but I made her a panelist, so she's here with us. Erica, can you hear us?
Hello, Erica. Well, folks, it's inevitable
Here
that
she is.
when we try to do something virtually, that there will be a glitch, and I really apologize. Hold on just a second. I think we may be able to rejoin somebody that can fill in some of the blanks for us. During this commercial interlude, does anybody have an interesting story they'd like to tell?
I would like to tell a little story while Erica figures out how to unmute. Erica, you don't look muted, but we can't hear you. Yes, on Wednesday when we opened, the group from Cleveland, from Little Africa, which is another co-op that's been sort of in our same cohort with folks like Erica and with the North Flint folks, they actually drove to Dayton and were there for our opening. And when I saw them, I just burst into tears because it just meant so much. Like having seen them at Up and Coming year after year, like having them, actually with us in person was like just one of the most meaningful things that happened. So I'll say that while Erica works on. Okay, Erica's gonna leave and come back.
All right. Well, Erica is with the Detroit Project, and she's going to try to help fill in some blanks here. If you have questions for the presenters, this is a good time to take advantage of the chat box, and we'll be back with you momentarily.
Hello.
Hello, Erica.
Hey, how are you doing? Sorry about that.
Oh, no, thank you so much for joining us. And there you are. Hello.
On camera. Can you see me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Sorry, yeah, that audio was really, really bad. I know this throws things off schedule, but if I can talk for a few minutes, maybe I can provide some clarity.
Absolutely. And I apologize to you as well as our audience for the technical issues. We've made a couple attempts to get you recorded, and it's all on me. So thank you for joining us on the moment.
All right, I'm ready whenever you're ready.
No, go right ahead. We're talking about acquiring land and the need to have ownership in spite of the contradictions of ownership and capitalism. And about there is where we turned off, although I think some people may have missed a few of the earlier comments. I think we'd mostly like to hear about how important the partnerships have been to you in getting to where you are and in fundraising for this project.
Yeah, so first I want to apologize to those who are following along for the poor audio quality, and I'll try to condense a lot of information into a short time period and just say that there are two main partnerships that are helping to move this project forward. The first is the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network, which is the nonprofit that I lead, initiated the Detroit People's Food Co-op and has provided support. Our board president for the co-op, Akua Woolbright, sometimes says that the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network is what she calls the parent organization. I don't see it exactly like that, but we certainly have provided support and continue to provide support to the co-op. So we've structured, so let me back up and say we're building the Detroit Food Commons, a $17 million building, the first floor of which will be occupied by the Detroit People's Food Co-op. The second floor will have 4 shared use kitchens, 3,500 square foot community meeting space and office space that will be occupied by the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network. It's about a $17 million project, and so we have gotten most of the money in through grants. Well, a large percentage of the money in through grants. In fact, in the last 8 months or so, we've been able to secure about $5 million in grants from a consortium of local foundations. And so most of those have come in either through Detroit Black Community Food Security Network or through our development partner, Develop Detroit, which is a nonprofit development organization. And so some of the grants have come in through their organization as well. We've actually formed a joint venture called Detroit Food Commons LLC, which is owned by the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network and Develop Detroit. That is the entity that will actually own the building. So we were very concerned from the very beginning about owning the land that we build on, about owning the building and having maximum autonomy. So the Detroit People's Food Co-op, Detroit Black Community Food Security Network, and Develop Detroit have all worked together to make that happen.
Thank you. And how has the co-op been able to raise the capital you need, and where is that funding coming from?
So as you know, Stuart, and as most people know me know, I hate capitalism. I think it's a despicable system. Yep. And so I hate using terms like capital stack, but for the purpose of this conversation, I'm going to use it. So the capital stack includes quite a bit of money in new markets tax credits, and as was expressed earlier, you know, that's a complicated tool to use, but nonetheless, we are using that. We have grants from foundations, and as I just mentioned, we got more than 5 million secured in the last several months from a consortium of local foundations. We've had private donors who have donated significant amounts of money. In fact, we just got last month a $500,000 anonymous donation. And then we're also using PRIs, which Leela talked about earlier, program-related investments, which are coming from some of the foundations. And as Arlene mentioned, we're using the member owner capital, not for the development, but we're using member owner capital really for the internal functions of the store, buying things like the point of sale system, making sure the store is stocked and what have you. So we've been able to structure this deal so that the co-op itself incurs very little debt, and the debt is really incurred on the part of the development partners.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts on the value of your community relationships and how you've made that a key part of this project?
Yeah, well, one thing I'll say is that we've been working on this project for 11 years. We were incredibly naive when we first started and thought we would have it done in 2 years. So we've had a lot of time to build relationships with community members. And I would say that this project has a very high profile in the city of Detroit. There are many, many people supporting it, both grassroots folks, people inside the city government, people in the foundation community. And so these long-term relationships that we've cultivated have really come to fruition and are putting us in a position where we expect to begin construction sometime in late August of this year.
Wonderful. All right, I'm going to open it up for questions from either other panelists to each other or from our audience. And if you would put those into the chat window, I'm not sure that I can make you live. I wish I could, but we'll certainly appreciate any opportunity to answer your questions now. For some reason, some of the earlier questions have been absconded from my chat list, but So anyone have anything they'd like to add right now? I apologize if I'm not seeing you, but for whatever reason, we're not getting comments at the moment. Well, if we're going to have technical issues, we might as well have all of them in the same presentation, right? Arlene and Leela, do you have comments that you have come up or thoughts that have come up in hearing from other presenters?
None at this time. I mean, but I would like just to add that during this COVID-19, we had to take back and look at how we were going to open up our store. And one of the biggest takeaways is like our seniors, you know, so many times they were going into stores, compromising their health just because they had no one to shop for them. So one of the takeaways is for us to do delivery, home deliveries. So we are trying to come up with an initiative of how we can incorporate that, especially for our seniors or any other person that cannot get to the store. So we want to provide that service for them.
We are also trying to figure that out. So we would love to collaborate with anybody who's has figured it out. Co-op Dayton is our nonprofit partner, and we actually started a restaurant delivery cooperative during the pandemic to help some of the local restaurants stay afloat. So it's owned by the employees, the drivers and the dispatchers, and it's 22 restaurants in Dayton. But even with that model, like it's not affordable. Like in order to be able to pay a living wage and to like run our operations and not have enough staff and, you know, like not have people's food get too cold or whatever, or cold food get hot. I don't know. It's just not affordable. And so we're still trying to figure out like, how do we, again, like blend, you know, philanthropic capital with like, you know, member capital. How do we get food to people who can't get to us?
Okay. How have your partnerships continued to play a role post-opening, Leila?
I mean, the past 2 days we've been open. You know, we have had our Expressions of Life is a really amazing grassroots health nonprofit, Black-led health nonprofit in Dayton that has been doing kind of just like their own curriculum, their own work on health screenings for the past 13 years. And they've mostly done it in church basements and community centers, like wherever they could kind of find space. And they really have not, I think they've never had a grant. Like they've just done it because they walk it because it's important and they do it. And so they're kind of our most important partner right now because they're now operating out of our community room. I didn't mention this, but we have a small health clinic and a teaching kitchen. And so they're either doing programming in there or they're helping coordinate with the external partners. So on our opening day, we had the Rotary Club reading to children. We had the Dayton Cooks, which is a kind of a, what do you call it? Like a workforce development program that teaches people how to work in the culinary field. They were teaching cooking classes in our teaching kitchen. We had a lupus awareness support group that met in our teaching kitchen. We had like already Central State University, which is a local historically Black college and land grant university. They have been doing like a SNAP ed, like how to cook healthy on a tight food budget. They did that yesterday in the teaching kitchen. So like the partners are occupying the space with us. And it's, I mean,
Wonderful.
It is theirs, you know, they really own it.
That's wonderful. For all of the panelists, are you expecting to have financial support from partner organizations after you open, or in the case of Gem City, now that you are open, or are you projecting to be able to be entirely self-sufficient right from the start? if you know the answer.
Well, I'm going to say no. I think you're always going to need that financial partnership, especially when you're thinking about what we all trying to do in our communities. So I never think that we're not going to stop. How that's going to look in the future, I'm not sure. But if I had to be Pastor Flynn right now, he's never going to stop when it comes to writing grants and trying to find up different ways.
And why is that important? I mean, most stores are trying to be self-sufficient, and that's fine and dandy, but I can understand why, if your mission is to serve a community where the cost of food and the cost of operations might not fall in line with that mission without some support. Is this where we're going, or am I misinterpreting? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'll let you talk.
Well, it's when it comes to the event center, because that event center, like I said, it has to make a profit. And when that profit, how do you bridge different organizations to come in? They may have a great message to deliver to the community, but how's it going to pay for itself? So that's where that grants comes into play and be able to sufficiently profitable the event center.
So it's not supporting necessarily the retail food side as much as the other community activities.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Same. We're not charging for the use of our community spaces, like our community room and stuff like that, but we are actively continuing to apply for grants that will support that kind of extra stuff. We're also trying to think creatively about how to, we have this like outpouring of support right now, like people want to give us more money. How do we use that to, buy down the cost of food? So like we want the market to be sustainable on its own 2 feet. But if we have extra money, can we give 10% off to everyone on EBT? Can we, what can we do with that money that moves it out into the community? And we're just figuring that out. So we're open to suggestions.
Great. Malika, have you thought about that role?
Yes. Similarly, we'll continue to go after money, but primarily for educational programming and things like that. So our market study, and I know market studies are controversial, there's been a lot of talk about them over the course of this conference, but our market study conservatively estimates it will take in about $110,000 per week in the first year. And so we're expecting sales to pretty much support the store. And the goal is definitely to have the store be self-sufficient. So we're trying to really get ahead of that before the store opens by absorbing most of the debt on the development side so that the co-op itself is not saddled with debt and the income from the store can go to keep the store operating as opposed to paying debt.
Right. I would say that all of you have had lower startup budgets, out-of-pocket startup budgets, lower debt service to worry about in your financial projections. And is that, to me, it would seem like that would be an essential component of being able to provide affordable food and still meet your other mission-related goals of supporting community sources of supply and paying reasonable living wage whenever possible, whatever. But am I reading that right? Is that low debt?
Yes.
Critical?
Yes, absolutely on our side.
Yeah.
Mondragon, one of the 10 Mondragon principles is that capital is necessary but subordinate to labor. And that's something that we've tried to really have central, that we don't want to take any capital that will require payback in a way that will keep us from paying our workers a living wage. So we're still, it's hard, but we're trying to not debt where debt service forces a compromise to our principles.
Any thoughts to add, Arlene?
No.
Okay. All right. I think we might have lost quite a bit of our audience, unfortunately, during technical difficulties, because I'm not getting any comments anymore. And we will have I will try to recover a transcript from Malik's presentation that we can share later. And if anybody have any parting thoughts on the importance of this community development partnerships to the success of your co-ops?
Well, I would like to start for those the participants that are watching us, just to let you know, I'm in Flint, Malik is in Detroit, and Leah's in Dayton. So we are really close, and partnership is called with mileage. So I am planning on getting to Leah's Gem City in probably the next month, because I really want to take a tour of what a fabulous store that you guys opened. And Malik, I'm right down the road from you. So it's just done about a hop, skip, and a jump. So one thing that I do appreciate is how close a partnership we are. And we're always going to be there for one another.
Thank you for adding that. One of the most important partnerships, of course, is among co-ops, the P6 principle of sharing and supporting each other. Thank you.
I see a raised hand in the
Yeah,
participant.
I do too. Now
I
let's see.
get allowed to talk.
Here we go. Maybe, nope. I'm trying to figure out how to let you talk. Hold on, don't give up. Well, can you put your question in chat, Bonnie?
I put two questions in this chat a while back. One was, how many businesses did Co-op Dayton support? I think that was the one. Now the chat won't move. Okay.
My chat isn't moving either.
Now it's moving. Where are my questions? That was one. How many businesses does Co-op Dayton support? And also I was wondering, Arlene, is the event center the community center, or is that a separate thing that you guys are building?
Well, I'll take my answer. It is the same thing. The event center is the community center. It's the same room.
So I guess it depends on how you count. In terms of operational businesses, we have Gem City Market, 937 Delivers, which is our restaurant delivery cooperative. Guided by Mushrooms is a commercial scale gourmet mushroom production facility. It's owned by, right now, just like it's 3 worker owners. And then Unified Power is our community land trust real estate investment cooperative, which is has an independent board and is operating, but is still like taking membership and doing pre-development on projects. We have the Westside Makerspace, which is inspired by the kind of like Fab Lab work that Cooperation Jackson has done, which is like bringing like tool lending, tool sharing among neighbors. And then we have probably probably 10 other co-ops that are like in our pipeline that aren't kind of operational yet. One is a cooperative of doulas and birth workers. There's another is a cooperative of journalists who are trying to figure out how to cooperate, but all of those are kind of more in the like figuring it out stages.
I've got my chat unfrozen. The reason I wasn't seeing any comments was because for whatever reason, that particular folder was locked up. And so now I do see some comments and questions. And one is an interesting one. Are you leasing from your nonprofits your space? Is that true for everybody? No. Arlene, who owns your space, Arlene?
North Flint Reinvestment Corporation.
But that's not the co-op either, though. So that isn't that the nonprofit development group?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay, all right. And Malik, I think you said the same thing.
Yes.
Okay, so the co-op itself is a tenant in all 3 situations, which is a good way to not have to put as much money up front for the project, I'm sure. Let's see, we've got a couple more questions, I think. There's some people that really appreciated that you're thinking about older adults and having friendly age and dementia friendly stores. And I don't think I've ever heard anybody actually describe one that way before. So Here's another question on new market tax credits. We know they're hard. I mean, they're very complicated, and for those who aren't familiar with them, you have to work with a lending institution, and it's a ton of paperwork. But they have their value as well. What if you don't use that? Do you have suggestions? What might be an alternative? I think, Leila, you're the only one who's actually worked with new market tax credits, or Arlene, did you say you're looking at them?
We are in the process of doing it right now.
Okay.
And the
Is
same,
yours-
same with us.
Okay.
In fact, some of the same people that North Flint is talking to, we're in conversation with about
What's
new markets.
Yeah, and any comments on that process? Is it something it's obviously you must see the value in it, or you wouldn't be pursuing it.
Well, it's a balancing act. I mean, there's a lot of, particulars associated with it that we would rather not deal with if we could help it. But, I'm not sure where else we turn to get money on that scale. And so it almost has become a necessary evil. In fact, earlier this year, we were hoping that we could avoid using new markets. We had fundraising that was going really well, but it didn't continue to go as well as it would have needed to have gone to eliminate new markets altogether. So we're still kind of saddled with that. So it's I'll say it's kind of a necessary evil in our case.
Mhm.
Same.
All right, let's
I'll
see.
I'll just say, I do think we should, either through the coalition work we are already doing together or through, I don't know, NCRC or something, we should be advocating for that program for if they're going to make new market tax credits permanent, like it has to be reformed, because it is not set up to actually facilitate getting capital into divested communities. Like, you have to jump through so many hoops. You have to hire so many lawyers and accountants. It is like a program that enriches and lines the pockets of accountants and lawyers. And the money that is left over in the community is very helpful, but the amount that you have to do to get it is like, makes it out of reach for all but the most kind of like, professionalized groups, which really can be like quite de-radicalizing. And I am the person who led that process for us, and it was joyless and horrible. And I still have trauma associated with it. Like, not to complain, there's a lot of other bad things that have happened in life, but I'm just saying, like, it is a necessary evil. Like, and it is a way to fill the gap, but I think we should be fighting for that capital to be made much easier to unlock for communities.
Yeah, I don't think
I
I've
agree,
ever.
and I agree, and I'll just add that the entire capitalist system is not designed to really put resources into disinvested communities. And so yes to what Leila just said, and the reform that we need is much larger than. In fact, we need something much more than reform. I'm an advocate of revolution. I know people don't like using that word in these days, but the reality is the entire capitalist system is designed to concentrate wealth in the hands of a few. And so there are very few vehicles that really work on behalf of grassroots community efforts.
Right. We get the leftovers from the capitalist system. That may be my impression. What about local? I mean, in talking about partnerships, I don't really think I've heard too much about partnerships with city or civic entities. Tax increment financing would be another, or local development or jobs grants. Has that been part of any of your projects? Anybody want to take that one?
We have.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Okay, go ahead, Leila. You go.
Oh, I was just going to say, we got local development fund dollars. So somewhere in the neighborhood of 550,000 between city, county, and state. And then we also had some federal dollars.
Okay.
And we are nailing down money, both CDBG money from the city of Detroit. And I don't want to discuss specific amounts right now because we're still nailing all that down, but we were in a discussion with city officials earlier this week. And we're also expecting a pretty big contribution from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. So we are, in fact, in partnership with the city. In fact, really the land that we're building on was made available by the city. They didn't give it to us. We were buying it, but still the fact that they made it available helped to expedite this process. If you can look at an 11-year process being expedited, but we had tried to obtain other parcels of land that were owned by private owners. We had terrible problems with that, with them jacking the price up, taking it off the market when we make an offer and things like that. So the city stepped in and said they would make land available for us in the area we wanted and sell it to us, and they had been a helpful partner in that regard.
So they saw enough value in the project to at least make some effort.
Yeah, and let me say this, in our case, many of us who are involved with this effort have been community activists for decades. And so we already have relationships with a number of people in city government, both elected and appointed officials. And in fact, the president of the city council actually stepped in on our behalf, unbeknownst to me. She stepped in and told some city officials she wants to see this happen. And that is really what resulted in us being able to purchase this land from the city. So having those relationships was extremely important. In fact, I would say that's the most important thing of building a co-op, the relationships both of the people within the co-op and also the relationship of the co-op developers with the larger community, including financiers and elected and appointed officials.
Right. So cultivating those relationships was a big part of, I mean, some of them, like you said, you already had in advance, but being able to cultivate and maintain relationships has an impact, obviously.
Yeah, I want to add another factor that we talked about in the recording, but I'm sure people couldn't hear that, and that is the impact of the pandemic and the impact of the protest after the police murder of George Floyd. Both of those things pushed both foundations and I think also people in city government to embrace a project like ours, because now everyone is either trying to at least appear that they're supporting racial justice. And some are, in fact, robustly supporting racial justice, and some are doing it out of political expediency that, you almost have to now have the forward-facing face that says that you are supporting racial justice. And so those two factors, the fragility that people saw in the food system as a result of the pandemic in the earlier days, and then the massive protest after the murder of George Floyd, has moved both politicians and philanthropy to support projects like ours. So in a way, we were perfectly positioned because racial justice is at the core of what we're doing.
Great, thank you for including that. Arlene, any parting thoughts? We've got just a couple more minutes.
At this point, we're looking forward to our grand opening in March. We plan on breaking ground in July, and we're ready.
Well, we're looking forward to it as well. I hope that by the time, Gem City, unfortunately, I would have loved to have been there for that grand opening. As soon as we can travel again, I'd like to be able to visit you and celebrate with you when you do open your doors. Both co-ops, Detroit and North Flint, been working with you for a while now, and I think we'll all be very happy when those doors finally open. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating today. Once again, I apologize for the technical difficulties, and for those of you that stuck through it, thank you. And as I said, I will do what I can to find a transcript or an improved copy of the missing recording and add that to our resources folder afterwards. So thank you very much. Okay,
thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.